Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created purely for entertainment purposes. It does not promote or encourage any inappropriate behavior. All characters and events are fictional. Viewer discretion is advised. It was one of those lazy Sunday afternoons where nothing really exciting was supposed to happen. The sky was clear, the air was warm, and I had just finished a long gaming session with my best friend, Josh. We'd been friends since elementary school, and his house was like my second home. I'd been over countless times: birthdays, late-night movie marathons, study sessions, you name it. But that day, something felt different. Something I wasn't prepared for. Josh had gone inside to grab us some snacks, and I wandered out into the front yard, stretching my arms and enjoying the sunlight. That's when I heard the sound: soft splashes of water and the faint squeak of a sponge on glass. I turned my head toward the driveway, and that's when I saw her. His mom. She was just washing her car. But the sight completely caught me off guard. She wore simple, pale blue pajamas. Nothing fancy, just soft cotton and casual comfort. But there was something about the way the sunlight hit her. The way her hair was tied up in a messy bun. A few strands falling perfectly around her face. She looked absolutely stunning. Not in a trying to impress kind of way, but effortlessly beautiful. Natural. Relaxed. Like someone who didn't even realize how much presence they had. I paused. And honestly, I felt weird for pausing. I wasn't supposed to notice that kind of thing. She was Josh's mom. The lady who used to pack us sandwiches when we played outside as kids. The same person who used to scold us when we broke the backyard lamp playing soccer. But now, standing there with the sun glinting off the soap suds on her arms, and the curves of her silhouette highlighted by the soft cling of wet fabric, I couldn't look away. She noticed me. She smiled. Just a casual, friendly smile. But for some reason, it hit different. "Hey, you boys done gaming already?" she asked, still wiping the windshield with focused ease. Yeah," I said, struggling to make my voice sound normal. Josh went in to grab snacks. She nodded and kept scrubbing the window, humming softly to herself. There was something hypnotic about the moment. The sound of water dripping from the sponge, the way she moved without rushing, just doing her thing, completely unaware, or maybe completely aware of the effect she had. I didn't want to be weird. I didn't want to seem like I was staring, so I tried to look away. But part of me was just stuck there, in that moment, watching a familiar person in an unfamiliar light. And then, as if things weren't strange enough already, something happened that changed everything. A gust of wind came from nowhere. It wasn't strong, just enough to send the hose she'd rested on the ground tumbling. It swung around and sprayed directly onto her side, soaking the already light fabric of her pajamas. She gasped and laughed, trying to turn it off, but now the water clung to her skin, outlining everything. She caught the hose and turned the nozzle off, still laughing. I could see the chill in her arms as goosebumps formed, but she didn't look uncomfortable. Just amused. She turned toward me, catching my expression. My face must have said it all, pure surprise mixed with total embarrassment. "What's with that look?" she asked, still smiling as she shook some water off her hand. "Oh, nothing, it just surprised me," I stammered. "Didn't expect the hose to attack like that." She laughed again. "That's what I get for not paying attention." I looked down, trying to distract myself by checking my phone or pretending to scratch my neck. Anything to feel normal again. But my heart was racing. It shouldn't have been, but it was. Josh came out just then, holding a bowl of popcorn and a couple of sodas. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. "Your mom just had a fight with the hose," I said, trying to sound casual. Josh rolled his eyes. "Again? That thing always has a mind of its own." We all laughed, but there was this unspoken air between me and her, like we both knew something had just shifted. A weird kind of awareness. A subtle tension. Nothing wrong. Nothing said. But definitely something there. As we went back inside, I glanced back over my shoulder. She was still standing there by the car, wringing out the sponge slowly, her face more thoughtful now. She wasn't looking at me, but it felt like she was waiting for something. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a regular visit. This wasn't just about popcorn, video games, or weekend boredom. Something had started to change right in front of my eyes. Something I couldn't quite explain yet. But I knew one thing for sure. This day wasn't going to end the same way it started. And I wasn't ready for what came next. We stepped inside, and Josh flopped down on the couch, tossing me a soda and kicking his feet up like nothing had happened. To him, it was just another day. Same house, same routine. But my mind was still out in that driveway, stuck on a moment that I wasn't sure how to process. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything, that it was all just a misunderstanding in my head. But the way her eyes lingered for that extra second, the way she laughed a little softer than usual, it stayed with me. Josh was rambling about some new game update, totally in his own world, but I barely heard a word. I nodded when I needed to, laughed when it felt right, but part of me kept drifting. And I couldn't help but wonder, was it me? Was I just reading too much into it? Or had something unspoken really passed between us? It didn't help that I'd always had a certain respect for his mom. She wasn't like other moms. She was different. Kind but not overly sweet. Sharp but never cold. The kind of person who could make you feel like your opinion mattered, even as a teenager. Over the years, I noticed little things. How she carried herself, how she handled stress, how she always managed to stay calm when everything else was chaos. I guess I just never really let myself see her as a whole person before. She was always just Josh's mom. Until now. We played games for a while, but I couldn't focus. Every time the living room window caught the light just right, I caught myself glancing outside, wondering if she was still there, still washing the car, still thinking about that brief moment too. I knew it was ridiculous, and I felt guilty even thinking about it. Josh had been like a brother to me, and this was his mom. It felt like I was crossing some invisible line just by letting the thoughts sit in my head. Around sunset, Josh's phone buzzed, and he got caught up in a long call with his cousin. I took the chance to step outside again, needing air, needing space from the whirlpool of thoughts spinning inside me. The driveway was empty now, the car sparkling clean. The hose was rolled up neatly. The sponge rested in the bucket, still damp. She was nowhere in sight, but her presence still lingered. That scent of lavender soap she always used was faint in the air. That same strange stillness from earlier returned. Like the world had slowed down, just enough for me to feel everything more clearly. I leaned against the porch rail, trying to settle myself. But before I could, the front door creaked open behind me. I turned. It was her. She wore a light sweater now, the kind you throw on when the evening breeze kicks in. Her hair was still damp, probably from a quick shower. She had a cup of tea in her hand, and her expression was soft, calm. She stepped out onto the porch and stood beside me, sipping quietly. "You boys wore yourselves out?" she asked, smiling gently. "Something like that," I said, trying not to sound nervous. "Josh has been on the phone forever." She chuckled, watching the sky turn gold. For a few moments, we just stood there. No pressure to speak. Just two people in a quiet space. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "You looked surprised earlier," she said, not looking at me. My heart skipped. I tried to act like I didn't understand. "When the hose sprayed?" I asked, half laughing. She shook her head slowly. "Before that." I didn't know what to say. The moment hung heavy between us. "I guess I just wasn't expecting to see anyone out there," I said quickly. Didn't mean to stare. She looked over at me finally, her eyes searching. Not angry, not weird. Just curious. Like she was trying to read me the same way I'd been trying to make sense of her. "You weren't staring," she said softly. "You were thinking." That response left me frozen. She wasn't accusing me. She wasn't teasing. She was simply telling the truth. She'd seen it in me, the confusion, the realization, the question I didn't dare ask out loud. I guess I admitted, not sure what else to say. She nodded, taking another sip of her tea. Then she said, "People grow up so fast. One minute you're kids playing with water guns in the backyard. Next minute you're taller than your parents and asking real questions." There was something bittersweet in her tone. Like she wasn't just talking about me, but herself too. I glanced at her, wondering what she meant exactly. But I didn't press. The front door opened again and Josh stepped out, phone still in hand. "Yo, they want to talk to you too," he said, waving his phone toward me. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Be right there." As I followed him inside, I looked back at her once more. She was watching the sky again, quiet and still, but I felt it, that same weight, that same something just beneath the surface. That evening passed like any other on the outside. We ate dinner, played more games, and I eventually headed home. But the whole ride back, her words echoed in my head. You were thinking. She was right. And now I couldn't stop. Because something about that day, something in her eyes, her voice, her presence had started a question that I didn't yet know how to answer. But I had a feeling. The answer was going to change everything. The next few days felt strange. I kept telling myself to forget it, to move on, but the more I tried, the harder it became. That quiet moment on the porch, her words, the way she looked at me, it all stuck. Every time my phone buzzed and it was Josh, I hesitated a little before replying. It wasn't his fault. He hadn't done anything wrong. But being around him now felt different, like I was holding on to a secret I didn't fully understand. A week passed before I went over again. Josh had invited me for a late movie night, just like old times. I told myself things would feel normal again once I was there. Maybe I had just imagined the whole thing. Maybe I'd misread everything. But from the second I stepped into their house, the feeling came right back, like the air was heavier somehow. His mom was in the kitchen when I arrived, pulling a tray of cookies from the oven. She smiled when she saw me and I smiled back, but it wasn't just polite, it was cautious, careful. Like we were both trying to figure out how to act now. Josh didn't notice a thing. He was too busy going on about some new horror movie he wanted to watch. Later that evening, as we settled in for the movie, I noticed she didn't join us this time. She usually at least popped in for a few minutes, made jokes about how we screamed at jump scares, then left. But tonight, she stayed upstairs. Halfway through the movie, Josh dozed off. Typical. I reached for my drink and realized I'd left it in the kitchen. I got up quietly, trying not to wake him, and walked out into the dimly lit hallway. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft creaks of wood under my feet. When I stepped into the kitchen, I stopped. She was there. Not in pajamas this time, just a long cardigan over a simple dress, her hair tied back. She was facing the window, staring out into the yard like she didn't even hear me come in. I cleared my throat softly. She turned slowly, eyes locking onto mine. Couldn't sleep? She asked, her voice low, calm. Just came for my drink, I replied, stepping past her to grab the soda off the counter. But even as I said it, I knew I wasn't in any rush to leave. She looked at me for a moment, then said something I didn't expect. You've been distant lately. My grip on the can tightened slightly. Just school stuff, I lied. Been tired. She didn't look convinced. You're not a good liar, she said, almost with a hint of a smile. I couldn't help it, I laughed a little. Guess not. She stepped closer, not too close, but just enough for me to notice. There was something in her expression I couldn't figure out. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't cold either. It was conflicted. I think you're trying to figure something out, she said carefully. And I just want you to know, whatever it is, it's okay to be unsure. That sentence hung between us like a fragile thread. My mind spun with thoughts I couldn't say out loud. I wanted to ask her what she meant. I wanted to ask if she felt the shift too. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready for the answer. I nodded slowly, offering a quiet yeah. I guess I am. She gave a small nod back, her eyes softening. Just don't lose yourself in it, okay? I didn't know how to respond. So I didn't. I just took a slow breath, grabbed my drink, and walked back to the living room. Josh was still fast asleep, the movie long forgotten. But my mind wasn't on the movie anymore. It was on her words. Later that night, as I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about everything, about that moment in the driveway, the quiet tension in the kitchen, and how every time I saw her, I felt something shift again. The conflict wasn't just between right and wrong. It wasn't even about her. It was about me. About how much had changed without me noticing. And what might happen next if I couldn't control it. The next time I went over to Josh's place, it wasn't planned. I'd left my phone charger there by accident, and I figured I'd just swing by and grab it. Josh had mentioned he was going out with his cousins that afternoon, so I thought I'd be in and out, no big deal. When I rang the doorbell, I half expected no one to answer. But then the door opened and it was her. She looked surprised to see me, but only for a second. Then that same calm smile appeared. Didn't expect you, she said. I just came to grab my charger, I replied quickly, trying not to make it sound like an excuse. Josh said it was cool. Come in, she said, stepping aside. He's not home yet, but you know where everything is. I nodded, stepping inside, but the second I did, I felt that tension again. That unspoken air. Like the whole house had fallen silent just for the two of us. I made my way toward the stairs, but she stopped me. Wait, she said gently. It's actually downstairs. I picked it up when I was cleaning. She led me to the dining area where the charger sat neatly coiled on the table. I reached for it, but she was already standing just across from me. Too close. Not uncomfortable, just intense. "I've been thinking," she said quietly. I froze. "I don't want things to be weird," she continued, "but I also don't want to pretend like nothing's changed." Her words hit like a wave. She wasn't dancing around it anymore. She was being real, honest, and that scared me more than anything. "I haven't said anything," I muttered, unsure of what else to do. "I know," she said. "And you've been respectful. I see that. But I also see how you look at me now. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed." The room felt smaller suddenly. The air heavier. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to freeze the moment in place. And somewhere deep down, I wanted to know what would happen if I didn't walk away. A long silence filled the space between us. Her eyes held mine, steady and unreadable. Then suddenly we heard the sound of keys at the front door. Josh was home. And just like that, everything shifted again. The sound of keys jingling at the door snapped us both out of whatever moment we were caught in. She stepped back instantly, and I grabbed the charger without another word. Just as I turned toward the hallway, Josh walked in, holding a drink and looking surprised to see me. "Dude, I thought you said you'd come later," he said, kicking off his shoes. "Yeah, I just came to grab this," I said quickly, lifting the charger like it was some sort of shield. "Didn't want to bother you." Josh looked between the two of us, eyebrows slightly raised. His mom had already moved back toward the kitchen, casually wiping her hands with a towel, pretending like everything was completely normal. But Josh wasn't buying it. I could see it in his face. He felt something off, even if he couldn't put it into words yet. "Everything good?" he asked, but his tone had changed. Not suspicious yet, but curious. "Yeah," I replied. "Totally." Josh didn't say anything else, just nodded slowly and turned toward the living room. But I could feel his eyes on me even as I walked to the door. I gave a quick wave, said I'd catch him later, and stepped outside, trying to steady my breathing. But just when I thought it was over, my phone buzzed. A new message. From his mom. "We need to talk." "Not here." I stared at the screen, my stomach turning. Before I could even process what to do, a second message popped up, this time from Josh. "Hey, has something been going on between you and my mom?" That's when everything changed. Whatever tension had been building wasn't just between the two of us anymore. Now he knew something. Or at least, he felt it. And nothing could go back to the way it was. I didn't respond to either message right away. My heart was pounding, my thoughts tangled. Josh's question wasn't just a casual guess, it was direct, sharp, and impossible to ignore. I paced outside for a moment, then made a decision I wasn't sure I was ready for. I walked back inside. Josh was sitting on the couch, staring at his phone, not even pretending to be relaxed. As soon as he saw me, he stood up. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes locked on mine. I froze. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect our friendship. But I also knew something had changed between all three of us. Keeping it inside had only made it worse. "Nothing happened," I said carefully. "But yeah, something's been off." He narrowed his eyes. "Off how?" "Your mom and we've had some weird moments." "Just moments." I never meant for it. I didn't act on anything. Josh stared at me like he didn't know whether to punch me or just walk out. Then he turned and walked toward the stairs. I knew something was off. She's been different lately. Just then, she appeared at the top of the stairs. She'd heard everything. She stepped down slowly, her face unreadable. "Josh," she said gently, "this isn't anyone's fault. I didn't cross a line. But maybe we all ignored the fact that something deeper was going on, something none of us wanted to admit." Josh didn't answer. He just shook his head and walked outside, slamming the door behind him. I stood there speechless until she turned to me. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "It's not about you, it's about your father. He and we knew each other. Before." And just like that, the whole story flipped. I just stared at her, completely thrown. "Wait, what do you mean you knew my dad?" She sat down slowly, her eyes heavy with something deeper, regret, maybe. "Back before I met Josh's father, before you were even born, your dad and I were close. Really close. We lost touch, then life moved on. Families happened. But when you started coming around with Josh, I saw pieces of him in you. The way you think. The way you look at people, it confused me. Everything suddenly made more sense. The strange familiarity, the quiet connection, the hesitation in her eyes. It wasn't just about me. It was about memory, emotion, and the ghosts of the past resurfacing in unexpected ways. So all of this, I said, trying to piece it together. It wasn't about attraction, she said softly. It was about recognition. A piece of the past I hadn't faced. I handled it wrong. I let the lines blur, and I'm sorry. I nodded slowly. The tension in my chest started to ease. It wasn't the story I thought it was. It was something far more complicated and, in a way, more human. Later, Josh and I talked. It was awkward, tense, but honest. Over time, we found our way back to normal. Not the old normal, but a new understanding. One where we all carried pieces of the past, but chose how to move forward. Some stories don't end with drama, they end with clarity. And sometimes, the people you think you're figuring out are just helping you figure out yourself.